People like Pat Buchanan were saying to stop the free market madness, stop the free trade madness, stop the militarism, stop the open borders madness. To put these things into a single bin, stop the globalist madness. All of these things are ripping the country to shreds. Trump gets in, and it's taken time for him to get his feet under him. He hired a lot of clever guys into his administration when what he needed was loyal ideologues that would go to the barricades for him. And I think now Trump is starting to get it, or at least it seems to me that he's getting it. Let me show you something here that I found very heartening. Donald Trump has placed tariffs on steel, aluminum, and washing machines. Now, for washing machines, Whirlpool is the largest washing machine producer in the United States, and here's a map of their locations. Ohio, 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 Michigan, Iowa. He put tariffs on aluminum and steel. Well, guess where aluminum and steel is produced? Here's a map of the proportion of the population involved in primary metal production, primarily aluminum and steel. Reward your friends, punish your enemies. California is never going to vote for you. This gives you some flexibility. Make policy that will make Minnesota vote for you and keep Michigan and Pennsylvania voting for you. California and the northeastern states can go suck a turd. Another great move that Trump did was reducing the state and local tax deductions, or SALT deductions, that individuals could deduct against their federal income tax. The cap was lowered to $10,000, which means high income earners in Republican states, which have fairly low state taxes, would be unaffected. But if you're rich and in a Democrat state, well then Trump just raised your taxes a lot. In effect, Trump figured out a way to raise taxes on New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, Maryland, Rhode Island, and Vermont, while lowering taxes on the rest of the country. And since none of those states that I just listed off matter, it won't hurt Trump in the Electoral College. Moreover, within states, people in urban areas have higher nominal incomes, even if they don't actually have a higher standard of living. What's the price of a bottle of water in New York City or even Boston versus a price of bottled water in Wichita? And the difference in rent is just brutal between urban and rural areas. But taxes aren't assessed on a cost of living adjusted income. They're assessed on nominal income. Even within, say, Californians in rural areas have lower incomes and thus pay lower taxes, and so Trump's SALT reductions are less likely to hurt rural house districts within California. I don't want any of this spurgy garbage about how bad the Republican Party is. I know. I lived the past 10 years as well. I lived the George Bush years, the John McCain years, the Dennis Prager years as well. Yes, lots of problems, but you have now Tucker on PragerU. Yes, PragerU is now talking about how the Democrat Party is using mass immigration to gain power, and shows evidence that they know it makes Americans' lives worse off, but they don't care because mass immigration means more Democrat votes, which means more power for them. Guys, 4 or 5 years ago, this stuff that's being put in like a info cartoon on PragerU, this was purely a white nationalist talking point. Republicans wouldn't touch this narrative with a 10-foot pole. They were still babbling about how they were going to get the Hispanic vote. John McCain is dead, may he rot in hell, and Lindsey Graham seems to have been infused with a little bit of a spine as a result. You know, and he kind of has his own little thing going on. Call me Lindsey. I'll call you he whose finger is in the wind. What you're doing now, Lindsey, is nice, but it remains to be seen if you'll go to the barricades when the time comes, or if you just go wherever the wind blows. McConnell the war turtle has gotten on board the Trump agenda. Conservative media is now dominated by Rush Limbaugh, who is a hop, skip, and a jump away from a full-on white nationalist. Jeffrey Tucker, much the same. Bill O'Reilly, after leaving Fox, has seriously gotten woke and is constantly talking about the war on white people. Glenn Beck is not quite as far as that, but he's now on the closed borders nationalism Trump train. And they're fighting. And based on the early voting data, it looks like this embrace of the N-word, nationalism, sending troops to the border, making immigration the #1 issue on voters' minds, is working. It's not the economy stupid, it's immigration stupid, because immigration is much lower on the hierarchy of survival. It's basic safety and basic existence. I think Trump has learned that embracing the Republican Party as the European American Workers' Party wins, and that cucking on these things scores you 0 points with third worldists. Increasingly, he's just not needing to compromise with the Paul Ryan wing anymore. And that's really it now. Who are the big cucks anymore? Mitt Romney? Maybe he'll just be one senator. Glenn Beck? Not anymore. Not even Dennis Prager is really vocal about being an open borders fiscal conservative anymore. McCain's literally dead. Lindsey has bent the knee. Ted Cruz was always kind of a Trumpist, even if circumstance pitted him against Trump.